Disney lost nearly $900 million on just 5 movies in 2023, almost $1 billion down the drain. And that's not just a bad year, it's a straight-up financial catastrophe. How did the mighty Disney, the same company that used to make billion-dollar blockbusters, fumble this hard?
The Disney workers aren't paid very well.
Serious problem does Disney have?
Disney.
Recession is coming. No to Disney.
And this is no fluke. Disney's been mishandling its biggest properties for years now, from botching fan-favorite franchises to just being completely out of touch with what audiences actually want. It's clear that Disney really has started to fall off. And well, it's not as unexpected as it might seem. Now, let's take The Lion King, for example. Not the 1994 masterpiece, the 2019 remake. The difference between the two is night and day. And it's not just about how they look, it's about what they represent. A massive shift in Disney's priorities. And let's be real, it's not exactly an upgrade. Back in the 90s, Disney was at its creative peak. Movies like The Lion King weren't just films, they were cultural icons. The original made nearly $1 billion worldwide. It had a diamond-certified soundtrack and became a generational phenomenon. And the best part was, well, they managed to pull it off with modest budgets and pure creative genius. Compare that to now. Lightyear cost over $200 million and barely broke even. And The Little Mermaid remake, $250 million later, it scrapped $570 million. Not exactly a win for a movie that costs that much to make. But it's not just the financials that are off, it's the soul of these films. Renaissance-era Disney nailed the trifecta: unforgettable music, heartfelt storytelling, and timeless animation. Movies like the original Lion King, it had an impact. Fast forward to today, and what do we get? Photorealistic lions with zero emotion and remakes that feel like expensive fan fiction. This drop in quality, it's not random. It's the result of a company that stopped prioritizing creativity. Instead of taking risks or creating new classics, Disney has doubled down on safe content, remakes, sequels, spin-offs. And they've gone from being trailblazers to playing it so safe that they're basically stagnant. And when they're not remaking their old hits, they're buying up other franchises Marvel and Star Wars, to milk for all what they're worth. And the result? A company that's losing both money and audience goodwill. It's not just about the visuals, it's about how much Disney's values have shifted. They used to innovate, now they imitate and chase trends. They're trying to repackage our childhoods and sell them back to us, but without the magic that made them special. Remember when Disney dropped $4 billion on Marvel and everyone thought that they were geniuses? Well, at the time, it seemed like a steal. Marvel was bringing in a lot of money, with movies raking in billions and merchandise flying off the shelves. The Avengers came out in 2012 and made $1.5 billion, the third highest grossing movie ever at the time. People were ready to crown Disney as the king of entertainment. But what's that old saying? Pride comes before the fall? And well, they definitely fell. Now, the latest Ant-Man and the Marvels are barely scraping by at the box office. The Marvels didn't even break $200 million. That's not just a flop, that's a full-on disaster. Then they got even bolder, buying Lucasfilm for another $4 billion. Star Wars seemed like a guaranteed cash cow. And sure, the franchise made around $12 billion, but the problem was how Disney handled it. Instead of building on George Lucas's original idea, they threw it all out the window. Now, Bob Iger admitted that they didn't have to follow Lucas's plans for the sequel trilogy, and surprise, surprise, the fans hated it. So much for a brilliant business move, right? So what happened? Well, Disney thought that they could keep churning out the same formula without putting in the effort to keep things fresh. They took on these massive, beloved franchises and slapped on some corporate control, thinking that that would work. Spoiler, it didn't. At its core, Disney's whole strategy is built on buying up properties and pumping out reboots and sequels instead of creating something new. And now, audiences are calling out the emptiness, rejecting the safe options. Disney is scrambling for their next big hit, and what do? Remake their own classics. How's that for creativity? So, what's Disney's recent strategies? Remakes, and more remakes. It's like they've forgotten how to make something new. The Lion King original soundtrack went diamond, over 10 million copies sold. But the 2019 remake? The music's barely a blip on the radar. Disney's entire approach right now is basically just recycling old hits and hoping that no one notices that they've lost that Disney magic. Over the past 5 years, Disney has released more remakes than original stories. Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, Lion King. Look, they're not just retelling old tales, they've gutted them. They've stripped away the soul of what made those stories unforgettable in the first place. And audiences have noticed. Social media has been blowing up with people calling on Disney for their endless remakes. Viewers are tired of the same stories recycled over and over again. And the critics, they're pointing fingers at Disney's desperate business model, where profits matter more than fresh and exciting ideas.
They fired everyone who knows how to engage in traditional storytelling without all of this woke nonsense in it.
Instead of letting their artists go wild and create the next big thing, Disney is too busy banking on what's already been done and turning it into a disaster. It's not just about the box office numbers anymore. This is about Disney losing the very thing that made them a household name: their ability to create something new, something magical. But instead of fixing the problem, what's Disney doing? Inserting themselves into social and political issues, often with cringy results, just to get attention. In an attempt to stay relevant, Disney decided to bet their decades-old reputation on political activism, and it didn't really go exactly as planned. In fact, it triggered one of the biggest subscriber exoduses in streamer history, with 2.4 million people canceling their Disney Plus subscriptions in one quarter.
Starting March 12th, Disney Plus and Hulu are coming out with a new agreement that will ban password sharing. So if you have either of these and you share a password with your friends or family members, you can no longer do that anymore.
Well, Disney's shift toward progressive values was clearly more about playing the corporate game than actually making a difference. It all started with their push to get high scores on the Corporate Equality Index. Because who doesn't want to look good for their investors, right? Well, things really kicked into gear when Disney publicly opposed Florida's HB 1557, and suddenly they were in a full-on political battle with Governor Ron DeSantis. The fallout? Well, they lost something far more valuable than a few stock points: their special tax district status. For over 70 years, Disney had control over their Orlando properties, and just like that, it was gone. Behind the scenes, things were getting pretty messy. While the higher-ups pushed for more inclusive content, films like Lightyear got slammed by audiences for their LGBTQ+ themes. You could practically feel the corporate execs just trying to push progressive narratives rather than creative teams who just wanted to tell a good story. The financial fallout has been pretty brutal too. We're talking more than just a few bad reviews. Disney's political stances have made people question their authenticity. Are they genuinely trying to make a difference, or are they just ticking boxes to please investors? Well, that question has cost them big time. Besides the subscriber losses, their messaging has been all over the place. And let's be real, it hasn't exactly won them any points. Now the company's slashing 7,000 jobs in an effort to dig themselves out of a hole that they've dug with political stances. What was meant to modernize Disney's image has turned into a full-on crisis. With declining revenues, lost loyalty, and no clear path forward, one question remains: can Disney actually survive without rethinking everything, both on how they tell stories and how they run the show behind the scenes? Disney, the company that practically made our childhood, is now considering selling off ABC and ESPN just to keep the lights on. Even bringing Bob Iger back, the guy everyone thought would swoop in and fix everything, hasn't exactly restored faith. Industry analysts are still eyeing the whole situation, wondering if there's any real plan to turn things around. But so far, it's not looking good. Now Disney's out there cutting costs and rethinking what magic even means. But the real question is, should they even get the chance? The Disney we all grew up with, the one that gave us timeless classics and unforgettable characters, it's barely recognizable. And maybe that's the saddest part. It's not just that Disney's struggling, it's that they've lost touch with why they mattered. Can they bounce back?